Time keeps on slipping, slipping, slipping into the future. Time keeps on slipping, slipping, slipping into the future. I want to fly like an osprey to the sea. Fly like an osprey, let my spirit carry me. I want to fly like an osprey till I'm free. Lord, to the revolution. Feed the babies who don't have enough to eat. Shield the children, no shoes on the feet. How's the people living in the street? Oh, there's a solution. I want to fly like an osprey to the sea. Fly like an osprey, let my spirit carry me. I want to.
Welcome everybody to Research Roadshow and Protecting the Nest. Today is the day before Christmas Eve. Welcome, Carol. Welcome, Amber.
Hi, John. Hi, Amber.
Hey, how are you?
Well, I'm cold.
Same here.
Got my Scottish muffler on, but it's 20 degrees and it's cold in Atlanta too. It's cold everywhere, I think.
Yeah, it's like 17 degrees here.
Yeah, we got 20. We're hotter than you are, and you're
That's
further
so
south.
strange, isn't it?
It is, but we're warming up. Are you supposed to get colder, or are you at your
I think we get a little bit. It dips back and forth as the front moves through, the cold front, and then by this evening it gets back in the 30s, like high 20s, low 30s, and then it starts to warm up a bit tomorrow. I think their biggest worry here was that we would get a little rain, then the rain would freeze, and then it would still be on wires, on limbs, and then the wind would kick in, and then it would cause lots of limbs and stuff to break, which would then cause a lot of power outages. But that didn't happen because it rained, but it pretty much fell to the ground and off the limbs and the wires by the time. And the wind actually came in before the freezing. So actually, when it was still in the 40s, the wind was whipping around, which knocked all the moisture onto the ground. So it kept everything from being heavy. So that was a blessing, because I noticed around 7 or 8 last night that the wind was picking up a smidge, but it was still in the 40s, low 40s. And then around 10 or 11, I noticed the wind really kicking up, and I was hearing, some good sounds, but I was watching like big drops hit the ground. So anything that had accumulated on anything had fallen.
That's so interesting, because that's kind of what happened here. I mean, we had all the wind. In fact, I had one window upstairs that I had the door closed to the upstairs because nobody was up there. And I heard some banging. But when I went up to go to bed, the window had actually broken and was freezing cold up there. So I had to kind of put something up there to keep the heat in for the rest of the time. But it got really windy, but everybody was afraid of the big ice storm, and that was fear in the news. But then it didn't really happen. But I know it did happen some places.
It did. And I think it was more in middle America, around Texas. I think they had some issues a little bit in Tennessee, maybe some in Mississippi, where it dipped pretty heavy. I have to call my dad later. They're in Arkansas. They're in Northeast Arkansas. So I'm sure they got a pretty good swath of it. Because what I think it really depended on was if the rain came in first, then the wind, then the temperature drop. So if you got the rain to hit, but then the wind hit before the temperature drop, then you wouldn't have a lot of breakage and issues like that. And I think it just depended on the timing of that, because some people got hit by the cold while it was still windy and rainy. And I think that's where it's pretty dangerous.
Yeah. And we've had those before. I
Yeah.
remember waking up where every tiny blade of grass, every tiny little branch has an inch of ice around it.
Yeah.
And then, whole trees
It's
come
really
down.
pretty when you get
It's
binoculars
beautiful.
and look at it, but then you're
Yeah.
like, poor thing, you're freezing.
And you're slipping all over the place and falling on your face.
It can be deadly. And we've been so lucky because I live in a neighborhood with huge, big trees. And and before, when we got some bad ones, they'd fall on houses and the last couple ones we've had, I saw giant limbs that came down on top of cars. And in both cases, by the time they got cleaned away and pulled off, the cars were fine underneath. And
Oh,
the
that's
same
great.
thing happened. A great big tree came down right in between these two houses, and it looked like horrible damage was done and it was awful. But when they pulled it all out, it really was just a little crunch in the corner. So more
That's great.
miracles are
That's
happening.
great. Yeah.
So we have to keep our protection going for those miracles because learn how to do it. I think we're part of the the forces. We're a natural force, and so we can.
I totally agree, and I believe more and more in miracles every day.
Yeah, they do happen every day, and boy, we need some because when Biden got reelected just recently, what did he say? We're going to have a dark winter, and
Yeah.
here we are on many levels with it coming in. But it's Christmas, and we can hunker down and be together and be with our traditions, and we all have them. I got my Scottish scarf on, and that part of my tradition, my dad and my mom both, they were from the Midwest. My dad was Scottish. They always ate oysters for Christmas Eve, oyster stew, very specifically. And they came from different parts of the country, but they both had that tradition. So that was our family tradition.
Nice.
But things have changed, and I have one daughter that's Persian. And so we incorporated some of her traditions for the equinox or for the solstice, her solstice traditions. All of those moments in time are very much celebrated in. Was born in Iran, and so the winter solstice was so lovely. I loved it. You peel the pomegranates and have a big bowl of pomegranates in the middle of the table. They have, what's this Bloomberg thing?
This
And
is Biden talking about the dark winter.
Oh, Biden talking about the dark winter. Okay, so then you put your feet under the table, and they have these special tables with little heaters underneath. So your feet are in this pit, and it's all warm. And then you go around the circle. Everybody's around the table, starting with you start with the youngest or the oldest? I think you start with the oldest, and people tell stories of the olden days while they eat the fresh pomegranate seeds. And that's a really ancient tradition, and it's kind of, the Greeks had the Persephone ate the three, was it Persephone? I think so. She ate the three pomegranate seeds when she got stolen and went to hell underground, and those were the months of cold. After she came up, they had to keep, the harvest was done and it got cold. So that's part of our Western tradition too. Anyway, so we incorporated that, and then Eva's got a lot of Native American, a lot of Mexican, quarter Mexican. She's a quarter Jewish, so we do a little Hanukkah. This year we're making tamales for Christmas, which is fun because that's a big tradition in Mexico. And I've never done that before. Usually make tamales later, like in New Year's. But we love tamales, and so we're going to have a big tamale feast on Christmas. So that's what we're doing. I think you're muted, Amber.
Yes, I'm muted because I've got noises going on in the house. Sorry about that. So with our, I guess, because Chase and I come from similar backgrounds, and with that, you're meshing two families,
Mm-hmm.
but the tradition is Christmas at our house, and and how we kind of integrated that. I mean, because when you kind of look at it, for me, it's always seemed very weird that Catholics and Protestants and Jews and Muslims didn't get along, and even agnostics. It was very weird because we have everything in our family like that, people who celebrate really everything or don't celebrate at all, but come together with family, and we could come together, have a great time, give thoughtful gifts to one another, receive wonderful hugs, play board games. All the cousins play together and create memories that were beautiful. And it didn't change how we and how we worship God and how we have our path. So when I got older and I started to notice geopolitics, it was heartbreaking. And I guess for people who are very dogmatic, which as I grow older, I think we all become a little bit more dogmatic because we're looking for our tradition. We're looking for where we're the most sturdy in our path. I remember that was a difficult journey because when you have people in your family who are Baptist, some are Methodist, some are Catholic, some don't really go to church, but they celebrate Christmas and they'll mention Jesus, or they'll mention, what they did when they were younger. Some do stuff like maypole and things that are more solstice, but then they still incorporate Christmas. And so, that was very difficult, was to try to find, okay, where do we stand? Because we even have on Chase's side of the family, people who married into his family that grew up Jewish. So you have like all of these, and this last time Hanukkah and Christmas kind of melded together. So you have people who are opposed with how they celebrate this time of year, actually doing things quite similar at the same time, giving gifts, having, they like menorahs and candles. We like Christmas trees. And then you have the people who celebrate the solstice, they do lights as well. So it's very, and I think when you look at the psychology of it, why are we doing lights? It's because it's winter, it's dark, and it lifts our spirit, and it reminds us that, the plants may have died, the crops may be, going dormant so they can get their rest. The energy of the plant may be back into the roots, waiting until it's time to grow again. But the lights tell us there's a tomorrow. There's a tomorrow, and let's enjoy today. And that brings the comfort and the hugs and the warmth and the blankets and cuddling and spending time together. And so I think when we look at traditions like this, we really enjoy going to a Christmas mass or going to teach the kids about this is how our family grew up. We went to church, and we really love to hear about, the journey of Christ, not so much about the specific dates, because it's very hard. And some people, the Vatican has more secrets about actually when and where and how, as well as some of the older Protestant churches where it's not really given to the people. So instead of us concentrating on that, we're actually looking for where our place is. Like, what is it we're tasked to do as we're alive? And we look at the journey of people who were looked to be sages, prophets. And we look to Jesus to say, what did it mean to say, follow me? And what can we do? Not how do we live in the past, and how do we yell at somebody else about what we think somebody who lived in the past said in this sentence and what it meant. But what are we doing now? Because I find a lot of people argue about that dogma part, but in their personal lives, they suck. Like, they're just not really walking a life of shepherding, of actually an example. And so we try to be that to our kids. So we get family together, we have food. Some people drink, some people don't. There's lots of laughter. There's some of the people will go off into a room and watch a ball game. There's usually a ball game on. Some people sit around and they talk about memories of when passed on family members were alive, funny things that happened, when a grandma was frustrated because nobody was listening, or when the kids knocked over the food off the table. Like, just really funny things. That's usually the women. We're usually in one room just laughing really hard about something. The kids, all the cousins, are usually running around. We're having to say, slow down, take your shoes off if you're inside, go outside and play. And it's just the family unit come together. and reminding us that we're all connected, but here is our direct connections, and to find love with people who don't think like you, have different fingerprints than you, worship differently than you, but you're sharing a recipe that was passed down from a family member that's been long gone. That you look at each other, and for all your flaws, you see how you look similar, how you do have so many similarities, and you might just be mad because you're so much alike that you look for the things you're not alike about so that you can pick on each other. So it's really, we really enjoy each Christmas. For us is different. It depends on what family we're visiting. It depends on what's going on in the world. It depends on, so much. Sometimes it's a really musical Christmas. Everything is like caroling and singing. Sometimes it's very religious. Sometimes it's very just like everyone's sitting around and eating and talking about the past and talking about what they're going to do. And so it's always exciting. But when we get home, we talk to our kids about what it means for us. And then we remind them that as they grow, their journey may be different, but that we have to give them some sort of tradition, but it's not a tradition to hold on to as if it's something that has been declared by the creator. This is the only way to do it, but it's to grow with it, to have a personal relationship with the creator, to be able to be in prayer, be in meditation, and ask for guidance as they go on with their journey. So we enjoy each and every holiday season, and we always hope that everyone around us is having the best that they can, and we do our best to collect toys or to volunteer our time to actually, give back. And so I helped volunteer to collect, there was probably over 700-800 toys come in the first batch and over 1,000 in the second batch that we laid out, that was collected at all the local police departments and taken to a PALS, a police athletic league area, where a bunch of kids who weren't going to have Christmas could stand in line, walk in, each pick out a gift, go back in the back of the line, go until all the toys were gone. And there were electronics, there were toys, there were trucks, there were dolls, there was everything under the sun, and it was wonderful to be able to participate in that. So we always try to make sure that we give to all our neighbors, that we give to all our friends and family, and that we volunteer some, so that there's people that don't feel left out.
Well, those are all fantastic traditions. Yeah, I think we need that spiritual reflection in the dark of winter. It's a wonderful thing, and to really appreciate everybody around us. And what makes us people is to do that, to be able to do that, to be able to hug each other and appreciate each other. But the return of the light in the winter is something worth celebrating because it's darker and darker. And now we know we're on the other side of that. It's going to get lighter.
The dark winter.
Yeah, the dark winter. Now we can have that faith that the light is returning. We can't really tell each day, but we know it is. We've passed that point and we're on the other side. So that feels really wonderful. And I think also just reflecting on what happens to plants. They have produced their fruit, their flowers, their fruit, and then it goes into the seed, and so the seed has all the potential for the next round. Everything's there. It's all like implosive. Everything has been reduced to this tiny, tiny interior, dark interior that has potential. And that potential is what needs the nurture for the next cycle. And it will be not as it was. It will reflect its environment that it grows in, and as well as have that potential, but it'll be new. So that's
I think one of the most beautiful thing about when trees go dormant in the winter and grasses and everything, that all of their energy is going into the roots. It's the most important time, that rest. And, a lot of people think, well, I can't do anything for my plants. Well, yeah, you can. You can put some really great compost on the soil. You can put some really great mulch on top, and then give it that foundation. So anything that leaches into those roots, it builds them, it makes them stronger. They go deeper, they go wider, because that's where the energy is. The roots are still alive, or it would be dead. So actually, that's the time to cultivate your soil, to lay those things on top, the mushroom compost, all these very important things, that it's going to need this next growing season. And if you remember that just because it's brown at the top and it's gone dormant doesn't mean that it's not, you can't still, give it some wonderful love.
Yeah, we need those plants. We need our sustenance. So that'll take
The
us
idea about the seeds being dormant but still containing life.
Yes.
I think that's part of the reason why the church co-opted the winter solstice in many parts of Europe and North America, because that was the time when people felt, that times were very tough. The harvest was over. Most of the food brought in during the harvest was already consumed, and so this period when people really needed a sign of life, they needed to see some kind of sign of hope. And I'm glad you brought up the issue of toy collection, Amber, because for several years back in Turin, I was in charge of the St. Vincent de Paul toy collection, and uh, and often my kids would object when I put some of their older toys into the toy collection, and they'd say, "Dad, what are you doing? Cosa fai? That's that's my toy." And I'd say, "Well, you've never used it. It's in mint condition, and there are kids that don't have many toys."
Exactly.
Right. And so that's where we plant the seeds that it was given from my great grandfather and grandmother to my great grandparents, and then to my grandparents, and then to my parents. This planting this seed of there's something bigger than you. It's not just your little world. You don't have to just take care of you. You have to be responsible to people outside of you, because we all live in this world together, and we have to take care of each other. So I like this idea of planting seeds.
So when you look at the balance, this is what, thank you for bringing that up, because my bigger issue is I don't want to be, the government handles everything and they make sure everybody have everything. I'm not communist. However, at the same time, when you look at, the free market, and you look at how it goes on the opposite side, well, the whole reason why you're supposed to give is because then, you're not forcing the hand of the government to help out people who are going to rebel against the government because they have a lack of everything. So when you have a lot, it's in your best, it's in your best interest to give. And the reason why is because you're doing it out of the goodness of your heart. And then you're also keeping your own autonomy as a citizen, where the government doesn't have to step in and say, we're going to take a large portion of your labor, of your money, and we might not allocate it correctly. We might be corrupt. We might send it somewhere while you're driving on potholes. We might not even supply for the very people we say we're collecting it for. So it's just best that we ourselves give where we can, that we ourselves, like, even if it's as simple as I'm going to take half of my seeds that I'm not going to be able to plant anyway, and I'm going to put, a seed donation little, box outside my door, and tell anybody if you need seeds, they're in this Ziploc. I'll tell you, I'll label them. Whatever you're doing, giving to people is so you're relieving yourself from asking a king, asking a dictator, asking a large bureaucratic government to do it for you. Because then a lot of the things that you work really hard for are taken away. And then they say they level it out, but they don't. There's just a few on top who really benefit, and everyone else is living as paupers. And then they wonder, how did we get here? It's because too many people lived in their own bubble and only wanted to supply for themselves. And they're like, well, I'm not here to supply for everybody else. Yeah, but don't be careful what you ask for when you do that, because there's going to be a large contingency of people who are going to grab pitchforks and go to the government and say, hey, we don't have anything. And then they're going to take it away from everybody else, because they're sure as heck not going to do it altruistically. It's just not going to work that way. So, we have to know that balance.
Yeah, well, we have a really excellent example of that happening in this dark winter right now.
Yes.
Then, so we can
Yes.
segue. That's a great segue because James Roguski's been keeping his eye on the WHO, and we knew that they were rewriting their pandemic proposal. And just the last couple days, we have the actual wording and the changes. And there's a very short period of time to do anything about it. And it actually crosses out. I mean, the WHO itself has charters and, it has a mission, and they're changing those
Huh.
missions and the charters.
Wow.
And Article 3, the way they're changing it, they're striking out the text that says, with the full respect for the dignity, human rights, and fundamental freedoms of persons. They're taking that out of their Article 3, and they're changing it. And they're changing it to the squirrely language that's not well defined, that says is based on the principles of equity, which is a measure of ownership. If you're an owner, you have equity in something. It's a different word entirely than equality.
Yes.
It talks about inclusivity and coherence. That's a word we like to hear. We like to think about, all being in coherent resonance. But I think, again, these words have been redefined for us.
Right. Right.
Carol,
They're
do you think that book, The Little Red Hen, would be perfect here? And the reason why is, she kept asking everybody to help her collect the grain, collect all the ingredients to make the bread, right? And everyone she went to was like, no, I don't want to. I don't want to. Then finally, after the bread was made, everyone had their hand out. Oh, I'll help you eat it. And she was like, no, because you couldn't help me bake it. And I think that's the bigger thing is this thing called equity instead of equality is I can sit on my butt or I can be detached and I can just expect that everyone else who's actually doing the job will help me balance out, and then I can get the bread without helping to collect it or make it. And I think people get in this weird pendulum swing where they visualize, well, if everybody's helping, isn't that communism? No. Like there is a way where everybody helps
It's humanity.
out of the goodness of your heart, and you care and you want to, and nobody sits on their butt and everyone grabs a wheelbarrow or they grab a shovel or they grab something because it benefits everybody, right? But that's what's very difficult. Teaching responsibility, teaching people to want to feel like they've earned what it is that they're getting. There's nothing better than knowing you put in a hard day's work or you did something and that return you get on it is beautiful. But if other people aren't doing it and they're receiving the same return you are, that's the equity that's dangerous. Because
yeah,
then you have
exactly. And I
people who are
think
like, I'm not going to do anything because I'm not, like, I feel like my hard labor is being robbed.
well, we've heard from some of the pundits in the WEF and the WHO, and they're actually saying, you've already been hacked, so you don't own yourself anymore. And this WIPO thing has actually carved up not only all the most horrible diseases in Eric Traub's refrigerator that people can own pieces of, any college that's done research on, or any pharmaceutical company, they all own little pieces of not only these awful viruses, but the viral like particles that are patentable, that are used to make all of the remedies. So this is our new economy, and it's coming in with this particular, it takes away all our rights and our dignity and our fundamental freedoms. It says right there, crossed out. And if we don't change that, it goes into great detail too, like the World Bank. If a country doesn't agree with all the sanctions in order to stop these horrible pandemics that are created, we now know that they get the World Bank will turn off for them, just like your bank account will turn off if you don't do your social credit scoring in China. That's the same thing happening to countries now. And we didn't vote for these people to take over all of the countries in the world, but it's happening because we're not
Absolutely.
looking at it. Yeah, so we gotta look at it. And James Roguski, I think you say Roguski, I keep saying it wrong.
Rogowski is what I thought it was, but
I've heard him call himself Roguski, so I think he might know. I will use that if I can remember. But anyway, he has put together, he's been on this because he's been waiting for it, and he's ready to pounce. And so he's got flyers, he's got a whole bunch of meetings that people can join to discuss. There's stuff you can do to take this under control and talk to all of the elected officials above us, tell them this is not okay. And it's being slipped in right at Christmas time when people are exhausted and tired and all this horrible weather, so no one will notice.
But that's so
But
deceitful. That right there.
I've been wondering since March why people are not out in the streets like you've seen back in France between 2017 and 2020. You saw people in France, the yellow vests. They were out in the streets protesting at least every Friday and Saturday. And in America, no. And especially after these revelations about the WHO and George's trips to Geneva, talking about the WHO.
I can tell you why, John. Because on the left, everything's been January 6th. Everything's been, everyone on the right is a white nationalist. Anti-Semitism is everywhere. The boogeyman is your next door neighbor. You have to turn in the next person. You need to inform Facebook and social media that you don't like this post that somebody said, and that you're fighting the worst enemy that's ever been, which is other American people. And then on the right, it's been, oh my God, we've been censored. Oh my gosh, we've got medical tyranny going on, what's happening. And we're only looking at the person beside us and the people right here. We're not looking. And plus, it doesn't help. Most of our news isn't international news. You actually have to watch the BBC. You'd have to watch other stations to be able to then glean that there might be something going on at the World Economic Forum and then at the World Health Organization. And then you actually have to go and find, those links. And they're just not readily available. Whereas someone in Europe may, because they might be talking on the news about it. They might be discussing it, on the channel that they're hearing at 7 or 8 o'clock. This might be why you see more movement in Europe, more protests, more pushback, and a more educated crowd when it comes to the World Health Organization or World Economic Forum. We're secluded. Like, we always like to make fun of countries like Russia or China or some of these other countries that they shut off their media from outside influence. It looks like that's exactly what happens to us, unless you can afford really expensive cable or satellite where you receive the most channels, and then you actually seek out something that's not mainstream media, which is like your MSNBCs, your CNN, your Fox, and you go to look for other sources that will show things going on outside the world. I mean, Bloomberg will show a little bit, but they don't even give you details of why is there a march, and sometimes the details aren't even true. So they'll say it's about, it's about the fascist dictator that just took place, the dictatorship that just took place in Italy, when she's not. She's literally just speaking what everybody is frustrated about. But then they do a snippet, they make it seem really crazy, and meanwhile, a lot of people like her, and so these are the things that we get a distorted view. And it's really sad that people say things like, well, if we lose America, we lose everything. What do you mean? Like, we're censored? We can't see half of what's going on? We have no idea why people are protesting in Europe? No one really knows why the American people aren't saying anything. It should be obvious. We don't know. It should be obvious.
I think the reason they can't say anything is partly because they've been muzzled, and we're not. We've thought up until recently that our press was a free press because it says in the Constitution it is, and everybody's believed it for all these years. And we have had investigative journalists in the past. They were okay to be there. But I think the corporate media, I'm going to call it that now, I think has turned off, maybe at the behest of the FBI. That's one of the things we're certainly seeing with the Twitter files and the January 6th stuff, the FBI involvement there. I mean, we're seeing that as one reason, but we know nobody is really talking about the Smith modernization. And the rest of Europe and the rest of the world has been used to this voice of America for years and years and years, since World War II. And they've kind of know what it's all about. But it just started here, and it started the corporate media completely all of a sudden changed.
Yeah.
And that's why nobody's
Well, it's embarrassing. Like if you're advertising for America, right? Or you're saying we want people to think America is great, and you're the one that's okay with the censoring. What you don't understand is your advertising is crap. Also, you're looking like a desperate country that's not as powerful as you say you once were because you're afraid of voices. If you're a country that's afraid of voices, you're not very powerful at all. And so what you're actually giving off to the rest of the world is not the actual thing you want the world to see you as. So it's really insane that the people who lead this country aren't very upset saying, oh, wait, what we're selling, this multi-level marketing crap, is coming off as just that. We don't look like leaders. We look like we've got a lot of issues, and we look like we're playing some desperate game instead of that we're not afraid of voices. We're not afraid of opinions because we're America, and that's what we're built on. And that's what's embarrassing. It's mostly embarrassing because our leadership seems to be too stupid to understand how horribly we're being advertised all over the world. And these are the people that say, we have to do this because we're America. We're the last bastion of hope. No, we're a joke right now. We're a joke because the people look stupid. We don't know what's going on. We don't even communicate well with one another. None of us are really being there for our neighbors. We're looking to judge everybody because of what they say on social media. We're not even focused. Our attention span is like 30 seconds, like a gnat. It's a really bad problem. And if I was the leader of this country, I would be embarrassed. I'd be embarrassed that my leadership was so bad that the outlook of what people see America as now is so different. And then I'm going to want to sell my products everywhere. I'm going to want people to respect that I lead this place. I mean, I look like a clown show. If I was in leadership, I would say, no, get rid of the censorship now. Like, we're strong enough. We can handle American citizens' opinions. We can have them be able to voice themselves instead of this political dogma where we're shutting everyone in a bubble and in an algorithm in order to control something. We actually look like a clown show. We look like a joke. The fact that our leadership doesn't see that, and the people that protect us, is a shame because they're actually making us look horrific.
Yeah, I think Elon bringing it out is an interesting phenomenon. But what he admitted, one of the things, I was listening to him for a little bit, and he said, the algorithms are telling me that if we want the people to trust us, we have to let this stuff open up. I mean, he's doing it because the algorithms are telling him to, so that kind of gives us a little clue there of, well, this is right. The algorithms are telling you that because you won't have any trust at this rate for sure. But if you do open it all up, that's our opportunity, to really get stuff out. So let's hope that Elon's message to open things up can get through. But meanwhile, we can't trust it, clearly. So it's time for us to step up, and this is
Carol, isn't it embarrassing? So they'll say, like, people have said, well, when you have open dialogue and everyone has an opinion and it's in the middle of a pandemic and all this stuff, it can be chaotic if you just let people speak. It can be chaotic if everyone has their own opinion. Do we not think that these last 3 years with censorship was not chaotic? Yeah. Look what it caused. I mean, people are more ignorant. Mm-hmm. Like, they just did the stupidest thing, which is the whole point was, well, we've got to control things. because if not, it'll get out of control. It is out of control because they control things. When you raise a country to not be controlled, and then all of a sudden you do control it, that is chaotic. And then they said they were doing it to stave off chaos. They were doing it to calm things. They actually amped it up and made it worse. So the fact that you have to, like, the lack of people that lead this country when it comes to understanding sociology. Hey, Tara, when it comes to understanding psychology, when it comes to understanding how people move, how people think, how people communicate, and not be able to put in there what social media has added to it, what 24-hour news cycles added to it, and what the blowback could be if they censored us so heavily. The fact that they are leading and they did not think 12 steps ahead shows poor leadership. When you are in leadership, before you make some major decision, you have to say, but if we censor people and we do heavy algorithms, this could happen, that's dangerous. We're a country known for independence, for freedom of speech, for the First Amendment. We can't do that. The fact that they, out of fear, and they're a leader, no. If you're a leader, you don't get to be afraid. You don't get to do that. You get to think logically. You get to actually respect the papers that we have on the book, our Constitution. You get to follow the laws on the books, and then you get to address the things that you think you may need to change in a proper legislative body. But they didn't, because of scared chickens that were waiting for someone else to lead them that was not elected to lead. And this is the problem. Like, if you cannot lead and you're just waiting for someone to tell you, you're not a natural born leader. You just wanted to do it for popularity, for money, for status. You're not there for the right reasons. And our country is suffering because you suck. And that's really the problem we have. That, and then
it's clearly
censorship
clearly
so
intentional. I think that the leaders have taken power, probably most likely against the wishes of the people.
Yeah.
I think we always think we're voting for someone that's going to have integrity. Everybody wants to think, well, who has the most integrity? But then we end up with people under blackmail doing what they do for other reasons. And, then the laws have completely changed in the last couple of years. All these giant, big 1,000-page laws have come in and shifted away from the constitutional law. It's not even considered in these new laws. This international law is moving in, and the transnational law and the transhumanist law is right there. So it's really time to see what the WHO is doing right now and take action. We are humans and we are active. That's what we do. We move. That's what makes us not a rock. We can do stuff. We can move mountains, and it's time to make that happen. Hi, Tara. Let's hear from.
Hi. Hi. I love it because I can start to just, take notes on what you guys are talking about here. But, that's why it's kind of, if you look at DC and Hollywood, it's like a fake representative of Americans, and speaking on like kind of dumbing down the people that are elected, when they come out and speak, it becomes so obvious. As a matter of fact, I've been watching the Arizona hearings with the Carrie Lake stuff, and you don't even need to, you can just listen to the tone of voice of these people and figure it out so quick, because you have the people that know what they're talking about. They explain things, and I was in a rush, so I even had it in fast forward because I was catching up. And it's like, you can tell somebody that's like covering their ass compared to trying to explain, it's like a whole different vibe. And these people are getting desperate. So when it comes to the ideal of Americanism in the world, it's not, again, there's like this synthetic blocker, you know what I mean? Like an ad that comes in and says, what you really want is, this consumerism, the idea of like, a McDonald's, or, just, you can think of any example, instead of what really is the thing that is the shining example, our constitutional law. Our constitutional law, which was arranged by people that had an old world, new world view, and they were trying to arrange this for the freedom of people according to that view that not everyone has. It was a very distinctive view. And, a lot of those concepts were based on the Iroquois and, their different nations, and the whole idea of, a confederacy, a bury the hatchet type thing, so we really, I think people get the wrong idea of what to look to when you think about why, the United States, and we talk about language, and I learned something that it's really supposed to be the United States for America, and these technicalities, maybe they haven't really mattered over the past bleepity bleep, but people have been taking care of business on that technical level. And here we are, where we all kind of need to learn from the people who did the deep dive and are ready to teach. And that's why we're coming out in many arenas to find out what we have knacks for, who we can learn from, and who really developed an expertise that if they got up there on the stand, they sound like the person explaining things, and that's what we want.
Amen.
Well, that was great. Thank you,
Yeah.
Sarah. That was wonderful. I think it is time that we all really need to step up and take actual action. Amber, you've been a wonderful role model for us of really getting into your communities. And now it's time. I think, John, if you have the Ragusky thing, you can scroll it up to the take action part. Tara, you weren't here, but the what's happening is that the WHO is taking out the language in the Article 3 in this new Pandemic Preparedness Act. They're rewriting all their articles, and they're removing the language that says, with the full respect for the dignity, human rights, and fundamental freedoms of persons. That is crossed out. And it's changing to be based on principles of equity, meaning ownership, inclusivity, coherence, words that aren't defined. I mean, we know what those other ones mean for sure. And we know there's a lot of interpretation of, like what equity is. It's not equality under the law. That's a different thing. It doesn't mean that. So anyway, that's what we're talking about here. Is this has been slipped in just in the last couple of days. We actually got the full ability to read what this Pandemic Preparedness Act is. We don't have our legislators there voting for us. It's just one person that is appointed who's representing our entire country. Or maybe there's a handful. I don't know exactly what it is, but it's time to let people know that this is happening. And
well, I think that one of the main reasons that they chose to cross out the word dignity is because that has a very important significance, especially among Christians, that it's central to the idea of individual power and individual responsibility. And the reason that the UN has worked so hard to put the mother and father aside and to say, parents don't count, it's the village that counts, is because it's the mother and father that instill in a child the ideas of individual responsibility, like we talked about before with the Christmas gifts and using the Christmas time to implant these little seeds. By canceling the mother and the father, and by even at school now, many teachers say, well, your mother doesn't understand anything. I'm the teacher, I know everything. That attitude removes individual power and individual responsibility from the deep roots within a person.
And the sad thing too is it's been the responsibility is being given to the child at earlier and earlier an age. Like the high schools here where my grandson goes, they get to decide if they get the shots or not, and they don't tell the people. Their parents don't get told.
That's really sad.
Are you kidding that?
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
In that back, aren't they doing a lot of like in Canada now that, you know, and we used to hear Dr. Kevorkian was the worst thing in the world. And then everyone's silent when it comes to Canadians, you know, when someone who was a vet who actually served their country or was an officer who later has trouble getting down their stairs and they need one of those chairs that take them down their stairs because they go down it on their bottom and scoot down. They said, no, but we can help end your life. You know, we can give you a nice, you know, death. That's really, really sad. This is Pony Boy.
There was a horrible one about the children too, Amber, that the hospitals can make that decision for your child and you don't get told until afterwards.
Yeah. Sorry about the intrusion of Pony Boy.
Oh, well, he's adorable.
Oh, Pony Boy!
We have two little kittens, but Pony Boy is attached to me. And the other one is Princess Buttercup. Our older one is Scout, who tries to guide them. But Pony Boy, like anywhere I go, Pony Boy is like right there. The kids wanted him to be Pony Boy and Princess Buttercup.
I love Pony Boy.
Yeah, he's adorable.
Stay golden. Stay golden, Pony Boy.
That's right. Stay golden, Pony Boy. Very important. Never forget. But you know, that just reminded me when you guys were talking. I saw this video. I'll just describe it in the way that I would, you know. This person, a girl, I believe, they were being questioned by some committee or something. I don't know if they were getting a position, what was going on. They had big teeth. I'm not saying that to, like, you know, the weirdness, like you just try to describe the weirdness. And that was something like her mouth and teeth were like very weird. But anyway, so they were asking her about parents' rights. Do you believe that parents have the right over what their children are being taught? And she was basically, in essence, no. And here's the thing that the person questioning her didn't pick up on, but I was like horrified. She says, often we call child services on the parents because they don't accept the children for who they are.
Ooh.
Who in the world?
That is.
Well, I'm wondering. Why isn't she paying their bills? Is she going to be putting them through college? Does she feed them each night? Does she make sure that they have the clothes and that, like, that's the issue, is that there's no economic sacrifice from these people who actually, they weren't there to give birth. They're not there at family gatherings. They're not there to make sure their kid doesn't run in the middle of the road. There's thousands of things parents do every single day. Grandparents, cousins, that are collectively like taking care of their family, and for someone not in that group to step in and start to preach and who often don't have children of themselves. Like, these are people a lot of times that don't have kids.
Right, exactly.
And I didn't have any kids. I don't have any idea what's going on. I'm just going to say, because I've got some kind of crap from my past that I've decided, you know, hurt me. And so I'm just going to throw that pain on everybody else and hurt everybody else that I have no business in looking into, instead of fixing my own life and then determining, you know, what I think this parent should do for this kid. I may not know that this kid, their first 2 years, said they were a unicorn, went from a unicorn to a baseball player. Now they want to be a truck driver and it's a little girl, but maybe she's missing the fact that her uncle and her two cousins are truck drivers, and she rode in a big truck and she thought it was really cool. And she's not trying to be a boy. She just likes trucks, you know, and then her teachers lead her into this. Then it's cool in school and she's confused because she's just being who she is. And then here comes this twit coming in with a crazy mouth, crazy teeth, who says, no, you parents don't get it. And then they're like, you don't get my child. You don't understand the patterns of my child. You don't understand my child's dreams when they tell me when they wake up. You don't understand the growth of my child. You don't understand how they play with their toys. Like, I've watched it from beginning to now. I know what stage they're in. You have no idea. You're in there in this little spot of time, in this little moment, delineating the fact that now you grasp their whole future. You're an idiot. And like people like that, I mean, I'm sorry, but like we need the strong men out. And
everybody asks how come
be stomping and saying, don't touch our children. Who in the hell do these people think they are?
It's worth pointing out that everyone, Europe is a basket case right now. How did it get so bad? Well, I think it's because for the past 45 years, all of our leaders have 0 children. Angela Merkel, Macron, you name it. And if they did have, on the rare occasion that they had a child, he spent or she spent every year at boarding school, and they got to spend 30 hours a year with their parent.
Yeah.
Well, the plan now is for nobody to have children.
It's so gross.
That's
what
these people are pathetic. They're pathetic.
Yeah, but what's more important is, or what's the most important thing to take away from it is that you can watch these people, and that's why we point out the weirdness, is because it's the intention is not the same as the parents. This is the scary thing. And they're being trained. Okay. Speaking of a pattern, there's a lot of money and there's a lot of training going on to warp these people's minds, like truly warp these people's minds. I meant you can see them. They'll just speak about presenting. They'll present in some like really off way. Like you said, they don't have any kids. They say, my kids, blah, blah, blah. And someone's literally telling them this directive, okay? Because it's the same. You keep on seeing it. And I almost see it as like, I have a friend who once, if he lived in Miami and was dating someone that lived in Cuba. And it was, he would tell me that they're not allowed to see like a real map. They think that like, they think that the dimensions between places are like way off. And I'm like, that's almost similar to what's happening to these people. It's like a Cubanization where they just put into this bubble where all they're fed is like, you need to be this femme and this thing. And it's like, it's so delusional that they can't even get a grasp on biology. It's like, speaking of being a unicorn, it's like, we have DNA, we have a biological physical concept that we can all agree upon, and philosophy is separate than that. It might be connected, but it's separate than that. So it's like a balkanization, but instead it's like a bubble, and it's sad because you watch these people, whether they're the people putting out the message, whether they're the teacher, the surgeon, there's all these centers popping up for whatever, or the victims of people that are really young and get this different idea of how to live their life and going under the knife, going into hormones and all this different stuff, which like, just like anything else in this whole arena, they don't want us to talk about in a logistic cause and effect kind of way.
It makes a lot of money again for the pharmaceutical companies to do that, to get, instead of people being biological, to sell them hormones and surgeries, and then there's things, it's not tested either. So really they're guinea pigs on how to become a eunuch, and horrible, weird things are happening. Like hair, if a female takes male hormones, sometimes you get whiskers inside places that, it's not something that can be always predicted. And there's all these horrible things that people are regretting. And then they say, well, we want to go back. And they say, well, there's not a solution here. I mean, you can reverse it, but you're not the same person. You have all kinds of issues for the rest of your life.
Yeah. And Carol, do you think, and Tara, I want to know, Do you think some of it is these teachers? They've been calling their students their kids rather than their students. I think it should be, it should be off limits for teachers to say, these are my kids. These are my children. These are my kids. No, they're your students. These are your students. You have this much time during the day, Monday through Friday, to teach arithmetic, grammar, history. Let's make sure it's not BS. Math, like concept, civics, geography. They're not your children, and they're not your kids. Kids are actually goats, baby goats. They're not kids at all. They're children. I say kiddos or kids, but they're your students. And anytime we hear or we see a written article where teachers are saying my children or my kids, there should be a letter to the editor. These are not their children. These are not their kids. These are their students. These are their students. These are their students. These are their students. We need to knock that out of their mouth. Get the fact that these children in your classroom are your children. They're not your children. They're not your kids. They're your students.
The only time I got into a really big argument with a teacher was back when my son was in middle school, and a teacher without kids tried to pull that. And I said, I delegate my authority to you for a short period of time every day, or 4 or 5 days a week. You do not have any authority beyond that. And we got into a big fight, and he tried to, I'll table it there.
Well, I mean, it's really ugly. And I think that's the trick with linguistics. So I think it behooves people to just do linguistics for dummies. Why? Because Tara could say a sentence, Carol could say a sentence, I could say a sentence. It could all mean the same thing, but it's how we put those words in order to get a response. So one of us could put it in a way that would literally lead everyone to say, yes, 100%. One of us could put it away and people go, let me debate that. And one of us could put it away where people are like, no, I don't believe that. And because linguistics are that like amazing, that I think someone who's really smart, like a Bernays type, would start to say in the literature, in the curriculum, your children, your kids, your children, your kids, to the teachers, so that when the teachers are regurgitating it, and then they start to say it, then they start to believe it. And then they started doing it where teachers have to pretty much spend more time with their students than their own children. So then you have a bunch of teachers that don't have children, because it's impossible to do so unless their children go to school there, and then their children have to stay at after school stuff. And then the dad has to be able to be there enough, or they have to live close enough to the school, and the children have to be trusted enough to walk home while the mom is still doing stuff at the school. So, I think there's a lot of these like linguistics and these little tricks that have led to a way in which our government, our leaders, and teachers could have more control over our children. And then you back it up with cartoons who make dads look stupid and moms look hyperactive and like, oh, I'm desperate to stay young, I'm hip. And then the kids are just rolling their eyes and making fun of them. And then they listen to their teachers. Well, some of the teachers, they listen to the male teachers. The female teachers are like the Charlie Brown, wah, 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 wah. So even with that, like, it's really, if you look at, and really the Charlie Brown one is a little bit healthier, because they're looking at the teacher like, oh, here she goes again. Where the parents are like, oh, I don't want, we're going to get in trouble. Like, there was more of an authority situation with the parent and less of an authority with the teacher. And then when you look nowadays, the kids are going to their teacher talking about, I don't know what to do. My brother's doing this. You don't see them going to their parents. You see the parents being goofy. They're dancing around. They're hearing the one thing. They're making jokes. And the kids aren't talking to their parents. These Nickelodeon shows, Disney shows, they go and they talk to their older friends. They talk to their basketball coach. They talk to their teachers. They talk to their principal. I mean, Saved by the Bell, I don't think you even really saw the parents. You saw their relationship with the teachers. And after that, it just became like, it was like the Saved by the Bell kids lived at school. The Degrassi High, same thing. It was just like your real family is your friends at school and your teachers. Your parents aren't really in the picture. See, they're not even in these shows.
You know, that's definitely promoted for sure, but I also think that they're lying when they say the percentage of times that the student initiates the conversation with the teacher, because you still have age appropriateness, and people that know kids of all ages, you know, when they're being like guided or when it's off the cuff from them, because they will, even if they have an interest, it'll be like at their own level, you know what I mean? So I highly doubt that tons of kids are coming to their teacher just to talk about their sexuality or some kind of thing, you know what I mean? They might like their teacher and get these messages, but it's like, it's not the way. The whole messaging is coming from the teachers to the students, and like you just said, they have a guidebook, and they put the guidebook on people that are young, troubled, whatever, and get them to follow this delusional thing. And
Tara, listen to this. Like, I've known a ton of nannies, and this is a good example. A lot of the nannies I knew didn't have children. We couldn't afford a nanny, but nannies are in such a great schedule that I did a lot of parent meetups where I would go where there was parents and nannies, because the nannies would have everyone having snack time at the right time, playground. Then we'd go to the High Museum. Then we'd have a lunch, and everything was super scheduled because the nanny had to get them back, get them down for a nap. And for a parent, you're like, ooh, free, scheduling. And then I just go with the flow. This is great. But when I was younger, before I had kids and before I got married, I was a nanny for a while. I'll never forget the day that the 15-year-old says, well, Amber, we're not going to have you around forever. And I'm like, what? And like, well, yeah, I get to drive next year. I got a car, but I'm not going to get a car unless I take my little brother to soccer and everywhere else. And so we don't need you. And it broke my heart, but I was like, wait a minute, I'm attached to children that aren't mine. I didn't give birth to them. I didn't even have my own kids. And I assumed that we had this like relationship where they're excited for me to pick them up. I made them dinner, I helped them with homework, and then I went home, and then the next day I did the same thing. There's an attachment. There's a weird attachment when you don't have children and you're female and you're maternal, and then you're around children. You automatically attach, right? And that's what's happening. And that's why some of these women are losing their mind, deciding they know better than the parents, because the school is giving them the authority. The curriculum is telling them it's okay. And so those natural feelings that I felt when I realized, oh no, they don't need me anymore. Oh, she's going to drive. I don't even need to pick them. Oh man, they don't love me. I'm like 20, 21 years old, but I'm like, oh, but I love them. And they're like kids that they're in their room half the time. I have to call them down to eat. They're not paying one bit of attention to me, but I was attached to them. And so I felt that. I've seen how it is when nannies raise children from little babies up until they're going to school full time, and then the parents don't need them anymore, and it breaks their heart, and they get a goodbye, they get a bonus, they get a gift that says, we're always going to remember you. They get a card every Christmas, but then they move on to another family. And you ask a nanny, that's the biggest heartbreak. So imagine being a teacher and you have no kids, and then your school and everyone in society saying, these are your children. It's going to mess you up. You're going to literally start to be authoritarian, and you're going to look down on the parents, and you're going to act like these parents are worthless and you are their savior. And that's a danger.
Well, our other danger here is that everything, the economy, our individual rights, our country, everything is being turned into this Pandemic Preparedness Act right now, and so let's just shift our focus for a minute to say, we're not diseased. We're not. The pandemic was, a program that was run. There was all of this gain of function stuff. There was tons of money went into creating this, and it was stolen from us. And that's the plan moving forward. So we really need to look at that and say, forget it. No, scream from the rooftops. We don't want more of these, because they are, as George is showing us, they're all lining up. they're all coming through again and again for the next bunch of years until there's nothing of our traditions and our humanity left. We become guinea pigs, or lab rats, or that's how we're viewed by those that are controlling the surveillance, our economy, our money supply, personally, and the big one is top down. Everything is top down, and we want to change that. Dr. Shiva, bottom up.
Yeah, that's what they're trying very hard to do, is to get every kid from kindergarten until 12th grade to accept that you don't have a duty to your family. You have a duty to the state, to the medical system. That's your duty.
And that sacrificing yourself to that is okay. I'm doing this for you. How many times did we hear that? No, that's not what I want you to do. I don't want you to hurt yourself.
Well, it's like a cultural playbook that it's, someone has created, like the Bible of evil, of all the different books of, like, this country did communism this way, or these people did slavery this way, or these people did, authoritarian, totalitarian this way, and just kind of like overlap it so that they can try to throw everything onto us. But one of the things that gives me hope, and I have a lot of it, is that thing about the intelligence. It's like so many of these people are plucked and put into these positions. They really don't know what's going on. They know their program, they know what they're supposed to do and say, but if you really look at the situation, they don't have the passion, they don't have the real energy to sustain what they say that they're all about, and granted, there are those real psychos that you can be like, okay, they're real passionate about, murder or something, and then you're just like, these are the people that need to get completely just taken down. I mean, we cannot, one of the things that I think that, and I'm in the mix as much as you guys of trying to figure out how to do it, but what we need to do is spread the understanding that we are in a war. And when people like the WHO put out this document, it's like part of their war manual of being like, this is our evil play, and people really need to start looking at it like that, because it's like,
but I don't think they think they're evil, Tara. I think they think they're in their silo, they have their influences, and they're doing what they feel like they have to do. If it's blackmail or if it's, some fervor, it doesn't matter. They're moving into this idea that is powerful, and they're trying to bring more and more people into it. But fortunately, it's a small group of people.
Well, I think maybe our way to get them to understand what they're actually doing, if they don't know it's evil, is the old tradition of doing to others as you'd have them doing to you. Put yourself in my shoes. Would you be okay with being in the submissive position that you've put me in, and then I'm doing what you're doing to me, but I'm doing it to you? If you don't know me, you don't know my intentions, I don't know anything about you, I put you in a box, I'm the authority, and I've told you to trust me, although everything around you says don't trust me. I laugh at things that aren't funny. I goad on to things that are just really destructive. And I say, well, this is just the way that it is. Like I'm numb to pain, like I'm numb to trauma, like I've had severe PTSD. And until everybody sees lots of murder, mayhem, chaos, and death, then they don't understand that this is something that's normal. And so my tragedy and my darkness seems like I have to reflect and look at myself. But if I make everybody else go through what I've gone through, and then I lead them, then, that's just good for everybody to do, because it's good for me. Because look, I'm a leader. And because I was able to be here, then these are the hard truths. Maybe you need to see chaos. Maybe you need to see riots. Maybe you need to see your friend's business burn. Maybe you need to see random people get beat up on the street. Maybe you need to see a psyop. Maybe you need to see this. I mean, I had to. Well, who cares if you had to?
Well,
that means you have horrible people around
that's
you
exactly
you bad.
Where we're going into the playbook is no trust. That's the playbook we're being played with, that there is no trust, there is no solid ground anymore. So the only option is to give it all up to these people that we can't trust, but there's no other options because there's nobody else to trust. So the white horseman, John Kerry or whoever it is, comes in riding, or Romney, I guess Romney's the white horseman will come in and save us, or Elon Musk, or somebody will come in and save us.
The hero.
The hero.
Swoop in. Why should we get to the point where we need a hero? Why would we just have really good representatives, really good leaders who followed the laws on the books, and if they need to be changed, and they go through the legislative process? We all got an equal vote, one person, one vote. We all were able to see healthy debate. We were able to debate. We weren't censored, and we were able to not, be dealing with multinational corporations that become monopolies and swamp and swallow up all the small businesses, and then ship all the jobs overseas and leave middle America, who built their life on working in factories and working in industry, then become addicted to opioids or become alcoholics and receive a small stipend from the state. And then you've got divorce that grows. You've got a lot of things that grow, all from a couple of businesses that decided to become multinational corporations.
Well, they used our taxes to do it. Yeah, I think that they used our taxes to become these multinational, and the dark money from the Department of Defense that nobody knows where it went. That's either 21 trillion or something 100 trillion or some unimaginable amount. Carol, that's not accountable.
It's our fault, Carol. We were asking for a living wage. I mean, what happened was inflation grew. We couldn't survive on one income, so that the mother could teach the kids, could stay at home with the kids, or whichever, and then the one person could go to work, but then two people had to go to work, but then they got two sets of taxes. Then the schools could raise the kids and make better workers, but then the workers got too greedy by saying, we still can't afford it. Well, we're just going to rip this job away from you, put some slave labor over here. We'll go to this country, say we're building you up while we're paying their people pennies. And then, we'll get our country mad at that country rather than look at us. And the fact that we've demolished their industry, made them vulnerable, went over there and they're beholden unto us. And at the very moment we want to go to war with them, we'll say, okay, they're bad people, right? But we literally helped to build them. We took away from our own people. And now when our people are mad, we play dumb. And then we act like our people are greedy and lazy. And the people over there, we're not taking advantage of. That's why you have Tim Cook from Apple, who does these horrendous things, who runs around and says woke stuff everywhere, but he's got slave labor. And then he doesn't say anything about how the employees are being treated over there. And then why do you think he doesn't care about the border crisis? Because they're bringing in our slave labor now to then take it back from over there, because American people who want to raise a family, ask too much to be able to not have such high inflation that one person can go to work, one person can take care of the farm, the family. Like if you got one person home, they can do the garden, they can do the inside, they can do that, they can do the grocery shopping, they can do all the finances, they can have the kids back and forth, they can do all the activities with the kids, they can have a healthy lifestyle. The other parent comes in, they're bringing in the money. We can't even do that anymore. You need two people working. So who's going to watch the kids? Like they know exactly what they're doing. The problem is now we know what they're doing. And that's the real problem.
We know what they're doing.
Now we're aware.
And we can protect our nest by being humans and by loving each other and by, taking the time to put our arms around each other and taking action. That's what humans do. When things get tough, we do what we need to, and we know what it is. We listen deep inside and we'll follow that. So we'll just be the mama bears and go forward and tell the who, forget it. But we have to go through the people we can talk to. So that's where we are now, I think.
Yeah.
And it's Christmas, and we can all have a great meal, hug each other, see our friends.
Yes.
Have our
grow close with everyone that, like, this Christmas, I'm not going to hold anything against anybody, what they believe, what they're thinking. I just want to be around humans that are experiencing life. I want to be able to look into their eyes and see them for the beautiful person that they are. I'm during this time, I give. I love giving. I love sharing. That's what keeps me going. And if I'm not, it's kind of like how plants and trees, all their energy goes into their roots. During this time, I have to rebuild my energy. And that is by giving. That is by enjoying and looking at people that fill my spirit and re-energize my battery. So this is when it's like love and hugs and just goofy movies and goofy comedians and funny things and lots of like just looking people right in the eye and seeing their soul, seeing that they were created wonderfully and beautifully, and really enjoying that to charge our battery. We need a recharge so that we can get going and we can really set some things straight this next year.
Yep, we can celebrate the return of the light, the return of our power.
Yes, and just being so that was so beautiful. I want to tack on that, Amber. I just appreciate what you were saying last week about feeling every feeling in this life. Like that's such a spectacular thing to think about. I've never really looked at it that way, and it's one of the hijacking of like movies and stuff, where it's like when we heard stories a long time ago, we could use our imagination to formulate it. We didn't have to have it like strictly within like the imagery that someone else placed. And so for me personally, not really loving the way that it's set up makes me kind of like run away from like those tearjerker movies, or like say a song's too sad, it's like click off, you know what I mean? Because like a lot of times I'd rather be like mad than sad. But as long as you get through it and you don't linger, then they're so important for experiencing those feelings of what it is to be human,
Yeah, don't live life vicariously through the television.
Yeah, I think it's good to, imagine if we just actually felt what it is, that emotion that comes over us. Don't let it overwhelm us, but feel it and then analyze it. Like, I'm feeling very angry but scared. Why? Because I just heard this. What does that mean for me and my family? It means this. What action can I take to be proactive so that I can stave it off or to help others understand it? Because I've got to turn this feeling into an action. If I don't feel it, I can never turn it into an action. This is what's so dangerous about cutting off your feeling, because you don't do anything about it because you're numb to it. And this is why I think they push those pharmaceuticals that actually numb you from the reality and have you not feel those feelings. Because if there's a feeling of like, I'm afraid and I'm angry, well, what can I do about it? But if I don't feel that feeling, I'm not going to do anything about it. And that's a bad place to be. It's much worse than feeling your feelings. I don't mean like running around and telling her, you got to feel what I feel. Well, that's the basket case. Don't be a basket case. Feel your feelings, but like get it together and just take it within you and analyze yourself and then do something about it. That's a beautiful feeling. It's a warning. It's a conversation with yourself saying something. There's a red flag. There's something. Sometimes it's pure happiness. Feel that feeling. Sometimes it's just glee. Feel it. But with that, there's these other feelings. Those are actual signs that we need. They are the most healthy thing to have. They teach us so much. Don't be ashamed of your feelings. Don't push it on other people. Don't wig out or have a bunch of friends you vent to. Like, that's a good thing, venting, and then get it out so it doesn't raise your cortisol level, cause you to get sick, cause your immune system to be harmed. But like, it is a beautiful thing to have these feelings, and people need to stop feeling like they have to drink or numb out or, smoke something or do something to get rid of it. No, you'll be much more action oriented and a better problem solver to feel it, to harness it, and to never forget that day you had that feeling. And to chalk it up is a wonderful learning experience.
Well,
And
that's great advice. Yeah, let's.
it is. You know what? I just want to add something tying together a few different things, okay? Because what's one of the things that they pump out that they want people to have a strong emotion about? Slavery, okay? And what's one of the things that we can use when we're trying to, because the reason that we care, we've already gotten past anger. We care about just educating people along the way. So if people can look at things in the idea of slavery, something that they already have a concept of, and simply put, Slav and slave are from the same root word. So in essence, has nothing to do with being black, America, any of that stuff. It's like they first started trading when they were. We can go into it deeper, but they wanted to trade blue-eyed people, so like Slavs. So the whole concept of this like little time period without the big picture is it's a trick, but we can use what people understand about it, like Nazis or slavery, to say this is what we're talking about. The thing that you already understand, just pluck it from what you think it is and apply it to what's going on now, and think the who and these people are the slavers. They want somebody to be guinea pigs and be their minions or whatever. They really don't care what size, shape, gender, blah, blah, blah. They just want slaves.
Yeah, and test subjects. Yeah, we're all that to how are they going to move into transhumanism? I mean, that's the stated goal. So it's why we're getting this pandemic plan now, but that we don't want. And so
we won't accept.
Yeah, we won't accept. So Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Let's step into the future without that plan. There's got to be a way.
Things are contagious, and good ideas are contagious.
Mm-hmm.
So let's spread the things that are contagious that are good.
Yeah.
And I think what's a great way to preface it is when someone comes to you, well, no, I think, globalism is great. You look at it, that's really silly. There's no way for globalism, because each country has their own sovereignty. They have different marriages. They have different garb that they wear. They have different traditions. Like, why would we want to take from that and mush everyone together? You're so silly. That's silly.
Well, it doesn't have to mush everyone together.
Globally.
I mean,
we can communicate globally. We can have businesses that are global in nature, but becoming a globalized society, that's so silly. That's so silly. That's like robbing someone else's sovereignty. I'm not for that. That's silly. I mean,
well, we don't want to have a monoculture, but we do want to accept that we do live on one earth, and we know that, and we need to keep the earth alive, just like the atmosphere and the water. It all goes to an important bigger picture, and that is important. So we can agree with them. Yes, that idea is right. But what this is something else. It's top down, and it isn't the way the globe works. The earth works from the bottom up. It's the self-organizing.
Remember when we're young and we're coming up with all these ideas, and your parents who love you, they care about you, and you say something and go, that's silly. We're going to do this. You didn't feel angry. You're just like, silly. And then you're like, oh, okay. And so I think using words like that are less declarative, less angry, less judgmental, but just like, no, that's kind of silly to have globalism. I mean, we're taking away people's traditions. That's just weird. And to be all under one king or one power, or like a group of people, that's kind of dangerous. That's silly. But, I really love the fact that we visit one another. We go to different countries. We get coffee from over here. We get, chocolate from over here, and everybody has their specialty. I think that's beautiful. And that's why we have shipping. We've had shipping for a long time. I think it works really well, except, people are fighting over those territories as usual. This silly stuff that never goes away. Nothing's new under the sun. And then you just treat it like that. Then they're kind of like, what do you mean it's silly? Yeah. Scoot on. It's silly.
Well, how can you expect somebody that lives in like a tropical area or like way north, Alaska type area? How can you expect them? Yes, they share the same things, but life is different for obvious perspective reasons. So if we don't have the many lenses to understand where people are coming from and to like approach those people in a way that we have an open mind and a question about, how they see this, or how their culture cooks this, or what slang they use to explain it, you know what I mean? And so that's the problem, is that when we have this problem of dominion, if ships are really coming in to trade and exchange, that's a good thing. If ships are coming in for dominion, or we have this level of imbalance, that's kind of what's being played out now, and what extends back into our past, even when it comes to the shipping, the language, and kind of where we're at now with trying to like deconstruct how did we get here, and so breaking down words, breaking down definitions, like you said, Amber, sometimes just put the definition is a very logistical place, a base of understanding that we can all kind of go on.
Yeah, look at the definition of dominion. John, could you pull it up and put it on the screen? I mean, it's a great word to look at the definition, and we have to look at, why do corporations and why do businesses choose certain words? Like, my first thing when I hear of a new business, I look up what that word means. Because when we chose our business name, when people choose their business name, they're choosing it usually not because it has nothing to do with anything they've ever thought of, and they don't find any familiarity with it, and it's just a word they chose. No, it usually has deep meaning for them, and people need to become aware of that. John, will you read that to us? You're on mute.
Dominion, and this is according to Oxford Dictionary. Sovereignty or control. For example, man's attempt to establish dominion over nature. The territory of a sovereign or government. For example, the Angevin dominions. And look, isn't it interesting that the flag, what pops up as the first image when you look for dominion?
Bingo. Exactly. And so another word that I was thinking about was this whole idea of intersection, right? Intersectionality. It's like another thing that they're kind of convincing these people is that rather than being on an intersection, I'm at a crossroads, they act like this intersection is going through them and like cutting them up or something, when really, like, they have no part. They're just like a rock, like you said, but really it's an aggregate. We are an aggregate. Each person, each consciousness, each culture, whatever, we're an aggregate. We take things in, we understand things from many different places, and we pull them through, like we talk about, hopefully our mind and our heart, and push them out. And that's one of the ways that we talked about, some months ago, Yensid, which is reverse the magic, Disney. And through all kind of different cultures, like you can break apart Christmas, you can pluck things that are from good roots or bad roots. But to me, if your family takes a tradition and makes it happy and good, that's a good thing. You're aggregating and you're bringing things to the light. Similar to like animation, where it's like, if you have Tom and Jerry and they're happy and that's jazz, that's a good thing. If you have Tom and Jerry and they have yellow eyes that are like looking evil at each other and doing some really mean thing, that's not a good thing. It's like very cut and dry. You can just, when you're trying to get the red flags, it's just like, oh, this maybe they meant it in this negative way, but when it came through this person's consciousness, they didn't even take it that way and they transformed it. So that's what we're doing.
Well, we're going to all take steps to get into the future coming up here. We've got a new year. We wish it was a more open palette moving forward, but there's some weird echo. Does anyone else get that?
I can hear
Yeah,
it.
I hear.
Yeah, I can
Yeah.
hear it.
I
Yes,
don't know
I
where
heard
it's
the
coming
echo.
from, but yeah, I know, John, you have to leave a little early today, so
Same here.
I'm ready to
Family's going to be
move
coming in
forward.
and out and being loud and happy.
Mhm.
You know, that was my thing today. I was like, oh, I hope this isn't timed whenever the family starts coming in, because, you know, you want it to be professional. You don't want a lot of noise and a lot of distractions. I was like, huh. And then I saw myself getting stressed, but everybody's in a Christmas spirit. I was like, well, you know, we'll just end early, or I'll just jump off if they start stomping around, because they're, you know, wanting to wear bells and start yelling, you know, jingle bells, and like being silly and hey everybody, and you know, me going shh, you know, I just felt like, oh god, that's kind of a buzzkill right there.
Right.
Oh, wait, I want to show you guys something. That reminds me. Hold on.
Look, Tara's the furthest north, and it's not
Dang
snowing.
it! I don't have it. I'll just tell you what it was. It was mutts, and they went caroling, and they were like knocked on the door, roof, roof, meow meow meow, and then he was like, "Dang it, I forgot to jingle." And then the person opened the door, and he was like, "Jingle jingle 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 jingle," and he said, the other guy looked at it. He goes, "When I jingle all the way."
That's great. And you know, I've been for the last like maybe 8 Christmases, I'm like, I'm gonna get some carolers together. We still haven't done it, and then because it goes by so fast, and then other people have already plans, and I'm like, oh, it's too late. Don't do it too close to Christmas because everybody's busy, but do it right before. And then it's like, what day is best? And half the clients we have when we go to drop off the gifts, we're like, oh, they already went out of town. How? Oh, and so the timing is always like, how do I get it there where it's not too early but not too late? And that's what the holiday season always crams out to be. So we decided this year to just be relaxed, to play music. If we feel like caroling, we do it. There's no organization. There's just like enjoy. Just whatever pops in your head, you know, just have everything ready. Have, you know, plenty of things to gift, plenty of baked items to package up and to pass out. And, you know, just laugh and smile and have a great time. Because trying to organize fun is not fun at all.
That's right. That's right. So I just want to add one plug. Seeing so we are going to be on McDuff on the 27th, let's do at least one Christmas Carol on that show.
Let's do
That'd
it.
be so fun. Yeah, we'll tell John.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay,
is
the
it?
other
Wait,
John.
I've
The
got
other
the
John.
28th. Hey, is it the 28th or the 27th? I got the 28th on my calendar.
I'll text
You
you,
do?
guys and we'll make sure.
Okay, we're gonna have to mesh calendars.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll find out.
Okay.
Okay. All right, thanks you guys. Happy holidays. Mwah.
Happy
Merry
holidays,
Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Bye.
Love you.
Love you guys.